politics, so-called democracy, so-called capitalism. These are all just fancy terms for protecting the new world. These are just distracting definitions of genocide and massacre. You can never escape the foundation in which this entire system, this entire society was built. NASA is an extension of the university system. The university system is an extension of the foundations of slavery, of the foundations of Christopher Columbus genociding and massacring the indigenous people of the Americas. That story is an expansion of the colonization of lands across the earth plane, the genocide and massacre of the indigenous people across the earth plane. We have these structures that are designed for us to think, how to act, how to feel, and how to be in society. And a good example of this is this idea that the mainstream, the modern way of living, the modern way of acting is, how you're supposed to be. This comes from generations and generations of mind control. This is a result of the Stockholm syndrome. This is a result of your parents going along with the system. So your parents did this. They considered themselves successful. That bar was set so low, and on purpose, not by them, by the society itself. The bar is set so low that you don't have to do much to be quote unquote successful. You just have to be just a hair more, whatever it is. So you're basing your life on comparison. That's the American way. You grow up, take over the family business, that whole thing. What is that based on? It's based on money, financial, the fiat currency system. Everything is based upon money. So money these days has overtaken the scope of humanity. This fiat genocide is what's happening across the earth plane, and it's not only limited to fiat. It's the belief systems, really. It's the belief genocide, because the same genocide that's happening from people being starved to death, having their lands stolen, having their just people like I showed in that last video, the uncontacted people in South America in the rainforest who are just slaughtered by loggers that were out there. Like they don't give a shit about that. They only give a shit about like something that happens in France or something that happens in, the subway system in England or something, like whatever it is. This is the mentality that conditions you to think and act a certain way about your authority figures. That's why I said it's at the same time that it's not so much about race. That doesn't mean that race doesn't exist. Like white supremacy was very much a part of the power grid that has added up to today. If you cannot look at the White House and see who's in there and see that is a part of this haves and have-nots power grid, then I don't know what to tell you. Something is off there. If you can't look at your teachers in the university system, if you can't see the existence of white privilege, I don't know what to tell you. This stuff exists. And if it exists, that means it has an origin. It has an intent. It has a purpose. And if it's been existing so many years, so many generations, that means it exists invisibly. It exists also invisibly, meaning like in our subconscious reactions. Like people have a reactionary, like a rash, like a temporary rash pops out when you hear certain terms like white supremacy or white privilege, and then they just want to get rid of it. See, that's the reaction to the Stockholm effect of not really addressing this system. It really is the alchemy of this system. It protects itself because they utilize triggering your emotional body to protect itself. And when you get that far into alchemy, it's not so much about the race anymore. It gets into power and control. And that power and control, the power and control structure of today is heavily founded in the colonial agenda, the genocide and the massacre of the indigenous people, and circles around ownership of land, ownership of resources. This is what I was saying in the last video we kind of have to really get into focusing on what it is that we are really addressing here when we bring upon all these truth stories and all this other stuff, and really don't see the origins of it, or how far we're really talking about this. Because like this, right before I did this video, I woke up today and I was thinking about like what kind of examples I'm gonna give of, you know, the things that have happened that shed light on how destructive this system is and how inhumane this whole system is. And I was thinking about all the people that have been taken out, all the land that has been stolen, all the stories that we've been told that are just blatant lies. Like all of these things that exist, all of these stories that exist out there, if only one of them is true, that burns down this entire system. It removes the integrity of this entire system. If even one of those people have been killed or taken out by the CIA, these leaders, presidents of other nations, Gaddafi, Hugo Chavez, all of these people, president of the Philippines talking about, he even said it. He said, you don't think the CIA assassinates people? Like, what world are you living in? See, that's as far as of a reality it is for people who are really looking at this information and saying, there's nothing there. They're selling you lies. They're selling you illusions. Hundreds and hundreds of people taken out by this system. All the African leaders that were taken out by U.S. government or CIA agents who were trying to protect the African resources that were owned by the colonial nations. So if any of those people were taken out by the CIA, look at all the lies that came out of WikiLeaks. This is all the information. They released that information through WikiLeaks and people like Snowden and all of these so-called whistleblowers that are out there. They released this information to release the pressure relief valve on you. That is to make you think like things are changing within the system. As long as you think things are changing within the system, you will not do anything about it because you will let the system try to heal itself, which is what they want you to think that's happening. On the second part of that, they also create this mentality of instability that's out there because you don't know what to believe anymore, because now you have this fake news and real news story, and your real news is based upon what, depending on where you're coming from, your real news is based upon what the people on television or YouTube or social media are believing is real news, and your fake news is the same thing. You believe in other people. You believe in what the mainstream society, what compartmentalized comfort zone that you have chosen, you believe whatever that zone believes in, and then you just live out the rest of your life in apathyville, thinking everything is okay. Oh, it's okay because it'll just take care of itself. Things are changing. Good job. I'm happy things are changing. But that's the thing. That's how this whole system works. It's about keeping you in a space of limbo, in a space of inaction where you're either too scared, which is the main thing. You're too scared, amplification of fear. You're too scared, or you're too distracted to research this information, or you're too bombarded by responsibility, by whether you have kids or you have a job or you have like a car payment or something like that. And that whole distraction grid is the apathy program that not only keeps people from challenging the system, but it actually prides themselves in this. And that pride is another defense mechanism. So you're either distracted, you're too afraid because whatever. There's so many ways you can be afraid. You're either full of fear, full of distraction, or full of pride. And that all of these keep you from addressing the origins of this system and ultimately activating your connection with the people across the earth plane that are being persecuted in these so-called third world countries by the so-called first world countries with the fire or the power of the fiat genocide mentality. And it's, like I said, it's not limited only to the monetary system. It's about belief systems, what you believe in. People believe in the heliocentric model. People believe in money. They believe in it so much that it overtakes human life. They don't care about human life. They don't care about human resources because it's about the money. We can't do anything about the resources because it's the money that's out there that keeps us from doing this. And the people who have the money, they're in power. So the power, that's where the fear comes in. But like I said, it goes through the belief systems. So you have like the Buddhists in Myanmar, previously Burma, the Rohingya, the Muslims in Myanmar are being killed. They're killed on sight, raped, killed, forced off of their land simply because their belief systems are different than the Buddhist belief systems in the nation. And the Buddhist people are in control of the politics of that land. That's no different than what happened to the Native Americans when we were labeled primitive and savage by the Western society who came to the so-called New World that they so-called discovered and called us savages and started killing us. This was all a mentality that was amplified and still being amplified today. You believe in the monetary system, you believe in whatever religious dogma that you have. Well, Western civilization is a belief system. Heliocentrism is a belief system. Scientism, the technological future, the technological present, the technological past. Not talking about the ancient technology because they can't talk about that because that removes the power of the current technology. You can't have these systems if you acknowledge the genocide and the massacre of the indigenous people. You can't have the pride of technology in Western society if you acknowledge ancient technology. You can't have the pride in the evolutionary peak of the university professors and politicians and society, like capitalism, so-called democracy. There's a pride in that. You can't have a pride in that if you acknowledge the ancient civilizations, which were in much more harmony than what's going on today. I'm not saying they were perfect. What I'm saying is that their interpretations of this reality, their understandings, overstandings, and understandings of this reality go a hell of a lot deeper than anything that's going on today. This is the most shallow interpretation of reality that we can ever experience. And it's only trying to kick into the next gear. This is what the New Age is. The New Age community wants to sell you this artificial idea of unity in order to take that idea and integrate it into the power grid. So they'll use your actors, they'll use your life coaches and all these people that are out there. They'll use your Oprahs, your Deepak Chopras, your Eckhart Tolles. They'll use all of those people, take all of that energy, gather all that energy, and then filter that energy into a particular program that is just an extension of the original mind control program, the original enslavement program. It'll just amplify the same story into the next story. And that's what's happening right now. It's the new version of apathy. It's the new version of colonization. It's the new version of genocide because these lands are still being stolen. We've been locked into a mentality, a belief system that this is the way things are supposed to be. And the power behind that belief system largely is fear. You are afraid of challenging the government. You're afraid of challenging the belief systems that make up the status quo of this society. That fear exists in everybody. And we just keep ourselves from processing that fear by just accepting whatever distraction or whatever, responsibilities that we have. Whatever it is, the more you're sucked into a materialistic, linear interpretation of your reality, you're more easily controlled when you have no marbles. Like when you have no, I feel some people know I'm talking about that. When you have no willpower, when you have no strength, when you have no foundation, when you have no intellect, when you have no hope, when you have no real friends, when you have no real family, you are easily enslaved. When you are largely based upon pop culture and materialism, when you have like a Kardashian brain, and you have like a Paris Hilton soul, this stuff is non-existent. It's empty. It's dead. That's why society exists, the mainstream society exists the way it is. All of the truther information, all the stories, the so-called conspiracy theories, all of this stuff goes down to power. Not only power of controlling the land and your physical reality, but controlling your mind, controlling your dreams, controlling your relationship with a spirit, with the spirit, controlling your relationship with the soul, controlling your relationship with your ancestors, controlling your relationships with your loved ones and your children. Everything is packaged out there in this modern family type of existence that you don't know what to think or how to think because you're always trying to be somebody else or something else. It's normal for this system. It's not natural though. And it's our belief systems that actually enslave us. And we talk about, yeah, it's us that it's enslaved. Yeah, that's what it is. It's your belief systems. It's the density that comes as a result of those belief systems that allows you to not lighten up, to not be able to enlighten yourself, truly. And the so-called powers that be know this, which is why the new age agenda, the alien agenda, this so-called non-physical reality from transhumanism, simulation theory, CERN, quantum dimension reality. This is why this stuff is existing, so they can synthesize your soul. They're trying to synthesize your spirit, which is only through your beliefs. So they synthesize your interpretations of the soul, which inherently synthesizes you through your beliefs. So if they give you your beliefs and your definitions, so if they give you your definitions through their interpretations of the so-called quantum reality, transhumanism, simulation theory, the alien agenda, the new age agenda, they give you that platform of how you interpret what's outside of this physical reality. Those are definitions. That's what Ancient Aliens is. Your interpretations of your higher bodies are being manipulated through the artificial interpretations and definitions and belief systems through your lower bodies. Your root chakra, your solar plexus, your sacral chakra is all bombarded by density, artificial density, distraction, apathy. You can't activate your roots, your root chakra, if you ain't connected with the people, the land. This is where the fiat currency system comes in, shuts that down. You can't activate your sacral chakra if you're over sexualized and locked into this. You can't make art. You can't make an art. That's what relationships are too. This is where all this stuff comes from. You can't go to the depths of relationships and real connection from that space if you're just locked into this Carl's Jr. commercial version of relationships. You know, a lady in a bikini eating a burger, dripping ketchup down her chin. You know, that's to separate you from the deeper layers of relationships. Same thing goes for your solar plexus. You won't have any willpower. You can't have any fire. You can't activate your fire if you think your fire is based upon Democrats and Republicans. That's the only way this human experience is going to change, is through this fake ass democracy. This is not a democracy. This is enslavement. It's colonization. You won't be able to be, and that's why they have to say all the time, this is the free nation. You're truly free. Freedom, freedom, freedom. Eat some freedom fries. Oh, the French did this? Oh, they're ungrateful. We saved them back in the day. We're not eating French fries anymore. We're eating freedom fries. America. Damn it. Like, that's the most shallow shit. That's no different than the Confederate shit that's going on. The Confederate statues. The Confederate states fighting the Union states. It's the same shit. All of them assholes had slaves. All of them were working in cahoots to make it look like they weren't expanding the slave program. What do you think the White House is? That shit was built by slaves. They can't say that out loud. They can't acknowledge any of this stuff because it'll remove the foundations. There's blood and bones underneath that. None of this stuff can be acknowledged, because if you acknowledge it, you actually start to empower the people, which disempowers the illusions. So your willpower, your solar plexus is cut short. It's cut down because of the apathy, because of the fear. That's the main thing, the fear. If you're too afraid to look into your own history, you won't be empowered enough to look into the depths of your present moment. And you sure as hell ain't gonna have shit to do with the future, which is why the future is prepackaged by the new age community, the university system, your politicians, television, SpaceX, heliocentric, assholes that are out there selling you future airplanes, future trains, future Back to the Future hoverboards and flying cars, all that other stuff. It's an illusion. It's a game. They've maxed out. They maxed out when they started this system, which is why they had to use the fear to make you believe it into your reality. Once you've believed it into your reality, then you take pride in it. This is those people that are on the streets talking about, kill that filthy nigger, lynch that nigger up and burn his house down. Who gives a shit about his children? Burn the whole fucking church down. That was basically yesterday. People who are acting like this shit don't exist, these people are still alive. Grandparents, parents, they're still telling their kids, probably even more so now than any time before, because they know that power is being removed. So they need to set those mind control programs into their own children and grandchildren even deeper. That pride, this is what Alex Jones is. 1776 will commence. What the fuck are you talking about? Do you not know that this is Native America? That this is indigenous land? Are you never going to acknowledge this information? No, they can't. Because their pride starts to eat itself after that point. Their power, their illusions start to eat themselves once they acknowledge any of the information that I just shared in this video. This is why they can't go any further than Western civilization. This is why some people, individuals, can't go any further than that. Same thing goes for mainstream religions. They can't let it go. If they go further back in time into their generations, into their interpretations of reality, deeper than that, it'll start to eat the foundations of those religions. And it's the foundations of these belief systems. The belief systems are what make up our reality. So your belief in the fiat currency system is what's fueling the fire to the apathy of the genocide of the Rohingya people in Burma or Myanmar. It's fueling the genocide of the indigenous people in the Amazon. It's fueling the land grabs by Mark Zuckerberg in Hawaii of the Polynesian people. It fueled the genocide of the Australian indigenous people. It's fueling the expansion of the colonial program. It's fueling the apathy of the New Age agenda and the so-called New World Order, selling you this idea of sustainable environments. That's how they're trying to do this. Like I said, fear was the old fuel. It's still being used today. It's like fossil fuels. It's fear. They sell you fear. You don't want to be like a caveman, do you? You don't want to go back in time and live like primitive savages, do you? Well, then don't complain about computers because you're on a computer right now. Boom! Gotcha! Get the hell out of here with that simple ass shit. The fiat genocide is really just it's a belief system genocide. Controlled through fear. Controlled through the amplification of apathy. The lack of going to the depths of your history. The paper genocide of yesterday is no different than the actual paper genocide of calling people, labeling people so they can control them. It's no different than the paper genocide that's happening today. The belief system of power and control through the fiat currency system, it's the same thing. And it's all through fear. If they get rid of the monetary system, you have a fear of your human resources, your shelter, your providing for your family, so on and so forth. That's a hell of a defense mechanism for the power grid. Until we start realizing that, then, what are we really doing here? So before you start really analyzing and doing something about that, the power grid is attempting to shift itself into the next gear of mind control, which is, instead of controlling you with fear, they're now going to attempt to control you with love, because that maintains power. Fear of losing resources. Now you have the love, sustainability through your United Nations, sustainable love through giving you your resources as if they can give you anything in the first place. The power is in them having control over you in the first place. That's what all this sustainable development shit is. You see that word, they throw that word sustainable out constantly. Sustainable development, sustainable living, sustainable transportation, sustainable food, sustainable whatever. It has to be based upon the idea of like climate change. Like that's what it is. It's like sustainable. That's the artificial definition of connecting with nature. It's the Western society version or definition of connecting with nature. Because Western civilization has gotten to where it is today at the expense of so-called sustainability, at the expense of nature. You think just because they're using a word like sustainability, the essence, the intent of the Western mind, the Western program, you think it's going to change because they're using different words now? That's alchemy. You're totally enslaved if you think that's going to happen. But people are going to buy into that. They're going to buy into that new world agenda, that new age perspective. We need to just come together, unify as one, and create sustainable communities, sustainable development. That's the way we need to be. That can only exist if people have artificially created this expansion program through mentalities like the new age, like I explained earlier with the new age interpretations. Oh yeah, love and light, we're all one. Those people are only experiencing the ghettos and the destruction and that food and that, those blood and bombs. They're experiencing that because they have karmic ties. That's what they've chosen. So what about all of the systems that exist where people are actually taking advantage of them? They're actually making legislature to bomb, destroy, and genocide people. Oh, no, you're just thinking, you're caught up in that density. You have some dark energy with you. I can't talk with you. That's not enlightened. See, what's enlightened is just to understand that it's all about karma. It's not about, what's happening based upon. We just have to connect with the aliens. The aliens will teach us everything. They're the smart ones. Don't you watch Netflix? Don't you watch Ancient Aliens? This is our real history. They sell it to you like a child reading fairy tales. And then your belief systems make those fairy tales your reality. This is the man-child, woman-child reality that's going on right now. That is the essence of the mainstream media and Western civilization as a whole. As long as you're locked into a belief system, you're locked into a world. If the people who gave you those belief systems in the first place and those illusions that added up to the belief systems in the first place, if those people are aware, or if they're manipulating that world, the future with technology, the future with extraterrestrials, the alien agenda, SpaceX, and so on and so forth, that's an example of the manipulation of the world. The world beyond that is a fiat currency system. They manipulate the money, paper, legal tender, Federal Reserve. It's a business. It's a corporation that runs your fucking life. They run your future because you can't have SpaceX building ... without the financial ... to do that. So the Federal Reserve controls your future. The Maritime Admiralty system controls your idea of justice, which controls your idea of what can change and not change in society. That goes for the so-called democracy, capitalism, the Western civilization as a whole, the genocides that are happening to the Rohingya people in Myanmar, the genocide that's happening to the people in the Amazon, all across the earth. And the acceptance of that is coming because that's the way it's always been. Business as usual. That's where the apathy comes from. That's where the fear comes from. The fear comes from you have no way in hell you're going to be able to do anything about this. It's too big. Too big to fail. That's what happened with the bankers, right? Too big to fail? You think they give a shit about you? Them banks own those houses. They own the houses that are being stripped from your grandmother because she missed 1 or 2 payments, or they upped the interest rates, or whatever the hell it is gentrification is doing. The banks own your livelihood. They own your shelter. They own your ability, what food you're gonna put on the table, your debt, your death. They own the very livelihood of your children, your future generations. This Western civilization, the constructs within this civilization own your ass. And until you start to challenge this system and see where it came from and simultaneously reconnect with your ancestors, until you do that, you're just going to be shooting the shit in the slave cell. As long as everybody is still accepting this reality, we're all enslaved. Nobody's free until everybody is free.